Thanks, everyone. Thanks for coming. Now, I'm sure you're all familiar with the Mediterranean diet, right? My most popular article is called "What's the Mediterranean Diet and Who's on it Anyway?" And from that article, a lot of chefs and nutrition students came to me and said, "Hey, can you tell us more? Can you tell us more?" And I said, "Well, maybe I'd like to show you, so come to Crete." And I thought, as soon as I said that, what was I thinking? You know, bringing type A chefs to Crete on these wild goose chases, running after shepherds, and, you know, when's the shepherd coming down from the mountain? I don't know, you know, there might be something he needs to do up there, chasing sheep. So when I first started, people asked me, well, where's your school? And I said, I have a school without walls. That's the only way I could describe it, because we had a whole faculty of archaeologists, botanists, shepherds, cheesemakers, chefs, of course, mostly chefs, and organic farmers. So all of these people in a team that I pulled together became part of Crete's Culinary Sanctuaries network. So we run seminars to teach people what the Mediterranean diet in Crete style is all about. But it's more than just nutrition and what you eat. It's about food sources. So last night when I was at the United Nations, I talked about conservation a lot, because with these types of programs where people are promoting cuisine, but not conserving it, preserving the lifestyle or the environment around which all of these products come, then we're in danger of losing them no matter what. So, when we look at the Med, there's 21 countries that border the Mediterranean Sea. So when they say Mediterranean diet, who are these people, right? It's a marketing group out of Boston, actually. But they don't want us to know that. So what made this little island so interesting to American doctors back in the 1950s, and what can we do to apply this information here in Chicago or wherever we live? So this is the type of class I run and articles I write to find ways to incorporate what we know about the diet in Crete and why it's so important, and how we can incorporate these types of concepts into our lives wherever we are. So here's now you guys, everybody in this audience probably knows where Crete is, so there you go. That's southernmost island on all the Med, right? It's the Libyan Sea in the south. Very mild climate. So we've got like 7 months of really easy farming, aside from the bugs. So very good for tomatoes and all the things that make up the Greek salads and things that we love. Maybe I shouldn't even use the microphone. Can you guys hear me? I don't know, maybe not. So beginning with the Minoan Palace of Knossos, the Minoan civilization, here's where we start to understand what the Cretan cuisine is all about. Now, in this era, the Minoans worshipped Yea, the goddess Earth. And Yea, if they were rewarded, would provide good harvest, right? It was all about food, beginning with the Minoans. What would be perfect in this setting now is if the agriculture back there, it's mostly olives and grapes. This region is all about olive oil and grape production since this time, so we're talking 4,000 years ago, is conventional now. So if this was sustainable organic farming, it would be exactly as it was 4,000 years ago. Here's the Minoan Palace of Festos, which was a very big agricultural center as well. You can see the agriculture continuing again in current times. So it's all about food. These are vessels for seeds. These are vessels for winemaking. And so when we also have, now we're moving up to modern day, religion, which affects our diet in a lot of ways, especially Lenten cuisine. Since you guys are all Greek, you understand all this, so, except, not everybody. But the Lenten cuisine requires fasting, and for those who are following the doctrine, not many do, but in Crete they do, the old grandmothers at least, And if you want to come to their house during Lent, then that's what you're going to eat. And it's, you know, mostly veg and grains, that's it. So I do have to point out that Crete is also in the turning point of globalization, and we have major mass tourism, which affects all of the things that we love in Crete. And so this is a lot of my work, especially last night with the UN, activism in trying to curb this, okay, go have fun at the beach, but don't build another hotel at the end because we don't need any more of this. And we also have karaoke. So when people see just the pictures of the mountains and stuff and they pass this, they say, hey, Nikki, wait a minute. You know, you should tell us about the karaoke, all right? So all of these are fine if they're confined to a certain area, but this is spreading. The mass tourism is spreading, which is affecting our cultural heritage and our natural heritage. And so if we're celebrating our cuisine, then we have to really curb this action. And we do have burger joints too. Lots of them. And so the Mediterranean diet concepts in Crete specifically are changing, and the younger generation is embracing the Western diet because of tourism as well, and TV. And so we're seeing the exact opposite of what we're learning here in the United States about the Cretan cuisine, and everybody's eating, you know, greens and good food. Well, the kids are eating burgers. So this is a village I lived in 15 years ago. It was the first village I lived in. And I saw how beautiful the fishing port was, and the small scale fishers and the fish, everything was so good, great tavernas, and it started changing rapidly. And the tavernas were closing down because the tourists just wanted pizza and spaghetti. And so that's how I started my School Without Walls. I said, there's gotta be more people than just me who really care about this. And I'm gonna look for them, and I'm gonna look for teachers. And so this is where I started. This is a very beautiful area, which is the cultural heritage is being chipped away by tourism. And we have seed savers now, so we're coming into, this is Vandana Shiva. I don't know if any of you know her. She's an activist for sustainable organic farming. She's from India, and she's been doing a lot of activism against Monsanto. She's a dynamo. She came to Athens last month with a very humble, small-scale seed saver, Panayotis on the left, and just elevated his work, because she's so powerful globally, elevated his work overnight. So we had the mayor of Athens speaking this day, and famous musicians. This is a protest. I said, you guys are supposed to look angry. What are you doing singing? But this is a Greek protest, so it's a different style of Greek protest. But so the good news is that things are coming around, and people are starting to acknowledge that we do have to protect our heirloom seeds and all these things that we've just kind of weren't paying attention, right? And we don't want to follow in the same footsteps as maybe the United States in letting agriculture, big ag, take over our food supply. So basically, this is just a summary of what I just said. The project that I'm working on is to create mutual benefits for the visitors and the residents. And it works. There's a couple of stories, like one young shepherd who said, I'm going off to Athens. This is a couple of years ago before the crisis, but I don't want to work with my father anymore. And I said, oh no, you're such a good shepherd. And he said, this job sucks. And I said, okay, whatever. And then I brought a bunch of really cute students from Wisconsin, University of Wisconsin, and they said, oh, how wonderful, you live in this wonderful place. And then suddenly he's like rolling up his sleeves and very proud to be a shepherd. So I said, well, if this kid can make some money at this, then he should stay. And so we have to find a way for the young farmers here in the United States as well, right, to make a living at this instead of struggling. I mean, it's ridiculous. If we want the good cheese, we want the good food, we have to support these guys. So here's a group of doctors and nutritionists from Buffalo, New York. And so before we get to this, situation where they're all just eating and not learning anything about what the food is that they're eating, would take them to the hills. So this is the hills above Alunda, where there's still people, beekeepers, shepherds, all those people we're looking for outside of the karaoke bar. Here's an archaeologist I work with. He's at the University of North Carolina. His focus is on agricultural practices through the ages, which to me is fascinating because I always want to know where our food comes from. And now we've got 4,000 years of this in Crete, right? It could take a lifetime to figure it all out. He's been digging for 25 years. He's at a site right now, which is the formation of the first archaic city in this area. And so what he's uncovering is this city was sacked, right? So it was burnt. And so they've got carbon artifacts of what they were actually cooking, right? They didn't just pack up and leave. They were actually in the middle of eating while the city was invaded. So we find all these things that these guys were eating back in the archaic period and piece it all together, and even the pots and pans. And at first you're thinking, okay, well, whatever, more pots and pans. But this stuff is really telling to give us an idea of what they were eating, what they were cooking, and it's pretty much the same thing we're eating today. Pomegranates, barley, lots of nuts, and big old feasts with pig and pork and goat. So they were eating very well up there at that new city. And so this is just the landscape here, the pantry that they found. And so this is good for students, the students in the Midwest, wherever they come from, but most of my students come from the Midwest, to see the agricultural production. This is an olive tree from 200 AD, that's their estimate. Here's the site again, that's an olive press on the left. It's a big old round thing. So when you think of how they started to make olive oil, you thought, why would they bother? It looks like such a chore, right? First you have to put the olives in that big thing and then pound them for days, and it doesn't seem to make sense. So, why was it so important? But that's a big old olive tree. So one of the biggest things, of course, from the Mediterranean diet concepts is olive oil, right? And so we really want to clarify how the production has changed over the years, and now it's coming back full circle. You'll see Venetian era, that big old arched warehouse with giant stones where they were really producing olive oil on a large scale. And then you'll see the modern production, and then Yorgos at the bottom right is splicing the old with the new. He's just rigged it to electricity instead of using a donkey. So we're seeing the production come full circle, although it's also very time-consuming and expensive. He's a biodynamic farmer, so it's organic as well. And so one of our favorite products is honey. And to understand where to place your hives, what kind of flowers, ideally you want the bees to go for. And so our famous honey is thyme honey. And so this particular beekeeper has a really great location for that. So the wild thyme is like, the bush is like this big. So not all honey is the same. This is the lesson for this day. And also you can see that there's no industrial area around here. This is actually near an archaeological site. So he really lucked out by having this location for his hives. Now we get to the committee. This is the welcoming committee. And I love this photo because I was really scared when I took the picture. I said, are they gonna come after me? I mean, I really don't know these guys. And what struck me as interesting was they come down the hill and they eat particular herbs during particular time of year. And this is a nomadic lifestyle. So the more development we have, the less nomadic sheep and goats can be. So we have an issue with that. I don't want to get all down about it, but this is a Natura 2000 site, which means it's supposed to be protected. But they're actually standing on cement, which is construction debris from that hotel down there. So I actually did bust the hotel on that one, anonymously, but I think they all know, because I think this is all on my Facebook too, but the line here is goats don't eat cement. So, if we want to eat the really good goat cheese and goat cheese yogurt, we need to make sure that they have their environment to, chow down instead of this cementy here. So here's Manolis. I work with a lot of guys named Manolis. People say, did you just forget their name? Are you sure that's not Petros? But now Manolis has been a cheesemaker, you can tell, for quite a while. And he can tell us a lot of stories about how cheese is made and give us some really good tips. And so the only thing is you have to climb up the mountain to meet him, because he doesn't come down very often. He doesn't actually like, to socialize too much. So if you want to learn some cheese tips, you have to go to his, and it's far up the hill. But he represents the society in transition, because no one in his family is carrying on the tradition. So we're looking for young farmers and shepherds that he can mentor. And here's Katerina, the same scenario. In National Geographic wanted this photo to represent my work, and I said, I'm not sure that that's really representative of my work, because I'd rather have a young farmer on, the photo, cover of National Geographic. If you're gonna make it the cover, but Katerina lives off the grid. She's never lived on the grid. She lives in an area, and I never told National Geographic where, because I don't want them up there. Because they say, well, we've been there, but you can't go because it's, off limits. I said, no, you're not even going to tell. I'm not even going to tell you where she lives. She has grows her own wheat. She has her own chamomile fields. I think that's where your chamomile is from Katerina. And incredible cheese, as you can tell. But when I first met her years ago, I felt it was tragic that no one was carrying on the traditions, and that it's lost with her. And so that's not what I wanted National Geographic to represent. I wanted to more of something that we're carrying on these traditions. We're trying to do that. She's a lot of fun too. So here's Stelios, one of the young shepherds I was telling you about, who rolls up his sleeves when he sees the girls from Wisconsin. But he looks pretty mad here. He's like, I hate my job. But occasionally when the girls come through, he perks up. But his dad is a small-scale cheesemaker, excellent cheeses, and these are all the products that we can get from just this one farmer, right, shepherd. Yogurt, tacos, all these beautiful products. That's gravier, very delicious, most of you know. And so all of this comes from this one guy. We have the fisheries, a very good fish in Crete. And this is a family where at least the children are still working with them. And this is, small-scale fishing is very, very challenging now in Crete, and so we hope that with enough protection of the waterways too, we've got overfishing issues everywhere. But if they keep it on a small scale, we don't have this problem. And so this is the kind of thing that the fishers can tell us, is that if you only have a few boats at the port, then we really don't have an overfishing problem. It's the illegal boats coming through and that go unnoticed. Can't believe that. Here's another family. 4 generations in this family teach a cooking class for us. And they're in a very small village, fishing village, and all the tavernas on this port have fishing boats. So they all go out and get their own fish, and you just wait for it. And so this is a real treat even for the Heraclians now, the big city people. And so this is, some of the best fish I've ever had. And Maria's got octopus up there, and you can tell she's very happy about that. But she's also an organic farmer. She has a huge garden which services the taverna. So this is a farm-to-table scenario. This is one of the one of the many, when we talk about farm to table now, here in the United States, like it's some new, trendy concept. Well, this is exactly what happens in any of these tavernas because they can't afford to call Cisco and source their food from someplace else, right? Let's pick up the phone and call the dude with the truck, right? She's growing her own veg. Her husband's a fisherman. The grandmother makes all the pastries, and the little daughters help with, eating them. I think that's their role in the demo. But it's 4 generations of this family, 4 generations working on a cooking class, and it lasts all day because there's a lot to do. So we start. I remember when I asked this too. Actually, it was kids from Chicago. I said, "Class is going to start at 7," and they said, "Why? We don't need to cook that much." I said, "Well, we have to go to the docks and get the fish." I said, "Oh God." Well, they had a blast, but to see how this whole family comes together to make your lunch, right? And so it was a great day for the kids from Chicago. Here's the friend Maki's, and here's my grilling techniques photo, my favorite grilling techniques. You can see that's an old one. It's from like some Polaroid or something I had 15, 16 years ago. And it's just to demonstrate that grilling doesn't have to be expensive. You can take a couple of rocks and get that little, grill thing for like $3 and stick the octopus inside and you're done, right? So you don't need the fancy $350 gas grill to make fish, right? And so Makis is grilling octopus, and then he grilled some other stuff all day, but that's just my fun photo of the fancy grill. And so with that comes all of the octopus and beautiful fish. Now here's a botanical trek. It's very important. Our Cretan diet, as you guys know quite a bit about that already. Manolis Avramakis is a botanist at the University of Crete. He's been leading my botany trips since I've started here. Always a blast, always have fun, but well, I have to really prepare for the trek with him because he's taller than I am, that's my excuse. But he's also a marathon runner. It's really not fair for us to have to try to follow him up the hill, right? Anyway, this is a group from the University of Missouri, and they come every year, and Manolis will point out the wild plants that are edible and also poison. And we learn quite a bit. So we have like a song and dance routine where he points out the herb, and I tell people what we use, how we use it in cooking or in tea. And so this is a great experience for kids from the city, like me. I'm from the city. To say, whoa, that's what oregano looks like. Okay. And so this is a very, very special day. There's the princess over there on the right, top right. I called her Princess. She found a wild pea pod, and I got the shot, and I said, this is perfect, the princess and the pea. But anyway, they all have a good time and learn a lot. All right, here's more of our wild herbs, which are, like any place else, are always at risk of overdevelopment, pollution. We've got the same issues in Crete as anywhere else. Not so much so, you can tell we don't have a freeway going through the mountain here yet. But that's all wild thyme at the top. On the right-hand side, it's a huge wild thyme field. And wild asparagus, wild oregano, poppies, as you can tell. I think Chef Dimitri's here has chicory or something like that. And then wild leeks. So all of these wild plants are an integral part of our diet. And if you know how to collect them responsibly, it's great. Here's my star chef. He's a big ham. His name is Mavrakis, Dimitris Mavrakis. He's got a restaurant in my village where he's incorporating the traditional concepts with a flair, right? He's studied at a big hotel school, and so he's splicing it together and elevating the quality of Cretan cuisine. Some people would say that's wrong, but I don't think so, because the Italians and the French have gotten away with it, so why shouldn't we? But he's very dedicated to preserving the culinary heritage and very dedicated to education. So, and he's a lot of fun. So he's a great patient teacher also. We do a lot of things with him. This is his dad's organic garden. You can see it stretches for a long way. This is also a farm to table situation. And here's some other teachers in the class, all farm to table, right? Including me. This is natural pest control. The cats actually eat so many bugs, I don't really have to do anything. So this is my garden. So when we talk about having a home garden, this is the only space I have, this is it. And I can get plenty of food out of that little space. Arugula, onions, dill, radishes, tomatoes, of course tomatoes, maruli in the back. You get the idea. And this is food meters. We've heard of food miles, so this is food meters, where the salad is right 2 meters away from the plate. Now everybody knows what the Greek salad is here, right? Well, I said, well, you know, when you're in Greece, you don't say, hi, I want to order a Greek salad. And it's called horiatiki, right? And so I try to, you know, explain the story of horiatiki to the students. And I said, well, that's why this one is numbered 1002, because there's that many variations of horiatiki, right? And so all of this makes up horiatiki, and I said it's what's growing under your feet when you order it, okay? And so each version is a little different. And all, you know, there's the same components of tomatoes and onions and cucumbers, but then the rest is up to the villager. Now, you see those heirloom tomatoes there? Have you ever seen any here in Chicago lately? Maybe at the farmer's market? The ones that look on the right-hand side? Huh? No? Virginia? So these are just some of the components of the med diet where when people say, well, what can we eat? I mean, you guys have all this stuff we don't get. You know, we don't have the fresh fish or whatever. I said, really, this is the bottom line. Tomatoes, right? Very simple, zucchini, right? I mean, that's not outrageously expensive. Artichokes are, though. We have a lot of we're lucky, we have a lot of wild artichokes, what can I tell you? But there's very simple cuisine that we can make here in Chicago during the season, and that's all that we do in Crete. The tomato season is over in October. You won't see any tomatoes in the store if you're looking at a store that's sourcing from farmers. Here's my auntie's grinding wheat. I like this story because, A, you really can't turn that thing yourself. But B, they're using heirloom wheat, which is a very significant issue now. I don't know if anybody has gluten intolerance, you know, but you know somebody who does, right? And so the whole story of wheat, that's why the archaeologist is so important with our classes, because the whole story of wheat is fascinating and how we've modified the wheat. And that's why, pretty much my theory on why we've got intolerance now. And here's a young bread baker. Now he's making white bread there, which goes in and out of fashion in Crete. From the Venetian era, white bread was the, you know, elitist bread. And now, you know, when you see people eating white bread, you say, oh, what are you doing that for? Here's Maria making homemade phyllo dough. Now, when I asked her where she got the phyllo, the first time I went to see her, I didn't see her making it. And she came out with that dowel and waved it over my head. I said, oh God, okay, now I know where she got the phyllo. But she's got the magic touch, golden touch to everything she makes. You can tell she's tough too, you don't want to mess with Maria. Then we have wine. In the last 15 years, we used to get wine in the recycled water bottle, you know, from the family. They give you wine and now we have high-end winemakers who are really taking this to a different level. And I hope that we can get some Cretan wine here in the States, but these guys are such small scale that they're not like Costco, quantity. Wait a minute, let me rephrase, all right? And so guys like Andreas Dourakis have really changed the way that he's the forerunner in this movement, let's say, to return to the indigenous grapes, grow organically, and small scale, high quality, great guy, great teacher. And so there's at least 12 winemakers now that I know doing the same thing. And his children are now working with him. And I said, well, how do you like working with your dad? And they said, well, he's the best boss we could ever have. He gives us a day off and gives me maternity leave, so I think it's okay for them. But the children had studied in Athens, PR, marketing, and so they brought a whole new life into the winery because he was just working and no one really knew who he was. And so his kids have now changed the whole atmosphere of the winery into art exhibitions and great parties.
What kind of vibe would they have if they wanted to ship it out to Athens, mainland, or to overseas?
I have to ask him because he's expanded over the years because they get to the point where it's like not worth it, But he's got higher volume now than everyone that I work with. But one of the issues in Crete is that everybody got a little bit of land from their family. Is this microphone going in and out? Are you guys okay? Everyone gets a little teeny plot of land. If you come to Crete and you see the patchwork, it's because Manolis owns this little bit, his brother owns this little bit, and each family member owns a little bit of land, and they won't sell it. And so if you want to have a winery like Mondavi, it ain't gonna happen, right? Because you might own this little bit, but your cousin owns this, or your neighbor, and they're not gonna give you that little bit, so you can't expand your winery. So this is why we don't have like mass production like Drama in the north, right? Or the Peloponnese, where we've got more space to work with. So this is the Cretan nightmare for winemakers, and especially if they want to grow organically. So this is changing a little bit, but because now during the crisis, people are selling their land because they're like, well, winemakers are so stubborn, it's just grapes. So that's an issue. And I don't know if it can be resolved. I think the best thing to do is just open a boutique wine shop in Chicago. You ready to do that? Oh, come on.
It might be a thought though to have a internet connection.
Exactly. And so I actually have some friends who are finally getting around to that. So from the recycled water bottle, which is that's dangerous anyway now to do that, but now we've got high-end labeling, high-end quality, and so with the online shopping, how do you say it? What do you call it? Okay, good. I've been out of town for a while. Okay. We'll be able to see some of that. I think the boutique and also the other products in Crete that are just not Costco quantity. I mean, in America always wants it bigger. So that's an issue. There's a couple of small shops here probably. I should look them up next time I come to town. But it has to be when it's summertime or something. I can't take the cold. So you guys, probably all of you have had grappa, right? And this is our raki. This is my favorite raki maker. And right now is the time to make raki after the grape harvest, right? And this is a very special occasion where you bring in your grape must, the stuff that's after you've pressed the grapes for wine, and you ferment that for a couple months, and then you take it to the shed and you party all day until the guy finishes your supply. So it's a really fabulous experience and really great food, because at this time of year we've got pears and pomegranates, and we always roast something and grill something. So this is a culinary extravaganza. Now this is where Zeus was raised, up here at Mount Siluritis. And here's another example of the beauty of Crete, and also the rugged nature and all the plants up there. But what you'll see is, I don't know this kind of stuff, the botanists know, but the same plants that are smaller or stuck in sticker bushes because they've managed to find ways to keep themselves from being eaten by the goats. And so you'll see the same plants up here, but in disguise. It's fascinating. So anyway, I think I already talked about the issues of the network and ease in incorporating the Cretan diet into Chicago during the season. Carrots, sweet potatoes. So I think whether we live in Crete or Chicago, before we celebrate, we should remember how we need to support our local organic farmers, or at least area organic farmers. And on my website, we have information for Chicago, but I think you guys are all foodies, so you already know this. But, a lot of people are just asking me, where can we get stuff like that in, where we live? And localharvest.com is the best one. You just put in your zip code and see the farmers in your area and see if they grow the stuff you want, But this is really the main thing, is to find ways to support our organic farmers. And we know that that's, an issue both here and in Crete. So anyway, guys, on my website, there's more recipes and information, stories about Crete. So go check it out if you want. Thanks for coming.